Yeah, alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to episode 52 of the Faith and Whatever podcast. Today's dancing brought to you by my mom. We are super excited to have a full house again. We are all back together. The band is back. The boys are back in town.
It's like a reunion tour, but
we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So we are super excited to be here with you today. If you don't know who I am the host with the Providential Least, Josh_Carmen, as our podcast continually decides to skirt the lines of awesome and mediocre. Joined as per usual with T Student Life, Garrett at Jamathy, James YUILE, and at Marion Ranch behind the board. Today's topic, we are discussing the ethics of virtual reality. And if you don't know why this is important, then you're probably living under a rock, because VR is on its way, even though it might be DOA. And if you want to find that out, why, you can go over to our F&W Game Club, and we have some videos there that actually in-depth discuss about the value of the value of virtual reality and whether or not it's even affordable right now. And what was our conclusion with that, James?
It's not affordable.
Not affordable
what
at
about for all
all.
the PS4 Pro people?
I mean, that's as good as that's as cheap as it's going to get, having a PS4 and a PSVR to go with it.
And don't they sell like 1 million of those like in 2 years or something?
A PSVR with the eye and the two controllers is $499.
Yeah, that's
and
a whole other console.
And then it's going to cost you at least $250 to get a PS4. So you're looking at what is that, $750?
Yeah.
$749.
Here's the good thing though about
Nintendo
virtual
Switch
reality.
or PlayStation 4?
Neither. Xbox One or a PC. So the good thing about virtual reality though is as we are on the front of this blossoming technology, we really get to see these full things start to compete for how the terrain is really laid out, right? Who's going to be the people who map it?
Let's make an important point right now. The thing about electronics social media is they permeate. Like, who knew 20 years ago like how much Facebook would permeate culture and society? I think most people's politics are built on Facebook, right? I think a lot of common politics is built on Facebook.
Relationships are destroyed on Facebook
because of politics on Facebook.
I think even our daily life is control. I just heard a stat that we spend on average 162 minutes a day on our mobile devices. Like, where did that time come from? We just robbed it from other activities we were doing, or stopped doing certain things.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge chunk of your day.
And for those people who play video games, I mean, there's most gamers out there know how to moderate video gaming as a hobby, but there's always the few that live on your World of Warcrafts who, even if it's just a cell phone game, they play it nearly full time. Yeah, that one's Josh for sure. So
that's why I'm the best in my clan, baby.
The point being is,
what's up, TRS?
It may be subconscious, it may be below the radar, but social media via electronic devices permeates.
Without a doubt.
And the next possible potential wave of permeation is VR.
Now,
right?
You know how you can know that it's going to be the next guaranteed wave of permeation?
What's that?
Is because Facebook owns it, and they're going to shove it down your throat
so
until
fast.
you are into it, regardless of whether or not you want to.
They'll make it affordable when they want to make it affordable.
Yeah.
When they're ready to.
There's no discussion of whether or not we want it, because it's coming, baby.
Yeah, of course. On that point, the Facebook's VR is Oculus Rift, which has suffered a very bad loss in a lawsuit against them. ZeniMax has won a $500 million decision against Oculus Rift, and that's not a lot. That's a drop in the bucket when it comes to Facebook's funds, but it's also now going to complicate whether they can about what they can do legally with the Oculus Rift, whether they can sell it as it has been, whether they can sell the technology at all. So,
was the suit claiming that the technology was taken
stolen by ZeniMax, or stolen from ZeniMax?
They copied and pasted some of the code.
Oh,
yeah, that's insane.
Well, should have just typed that one out. Copy and pasting illegally. So this is kind of it's kind of my jam. So I spent a lot of time researching kind of the effects of digital media on the human behavior. Specifically, I'm looking at kind of how the church is responding, because I think it's responding pretty slowly. So I've done a lot of research in how is technology changing, and there's the age-old McLuhan thing that the medium is the message, and so that becomes like stronger as the medium becomes more immersive, right? So they used to think that radio and television really affected the message that you were pushing across in some way. However, you could debate how it changed the method. Maybe it was more or less personal. Maybe it was more or less immersive. But there's no doubt that putting on a screen and changing your entire environment, having that environment controlled by
well, relative to its time, you could make an immersive message in radio, right? You could create a very immersive show, immersive fictional context via radio, relative to its time. And if you mixed into that some kind of subversive message, for example, you could permeate that subversive
Sure, absolutely.
message.
But imagine the effect that true virtual reality immersion has on the actual way the brain functions.
Right.
So we have an article that I just read.
Because an important point, I'm going to let you, to explain why virtual reality is different than, let's say, television, is because it's the first medium that completely captures all of your senses.
Yeah.
Like, there's no part of your world view, there's no part of your sensory experience.
Your nose. I don't think they have smell. Yeah.
They actually do, but nobody uses it. No, there is a smell tech.
Actually, I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
So this article said that the APA, American Psychology Association, whatever, had to kind of slow down some of these experiments done in VR because part of their ethics code is that an experiment should not have lasting psychological effects on the subjects, and VR has been shown to have some lasting effects. And so they just said, well, we need to kind of relook at how we do these, and that tells you already the effect that VR has on the brain.
Right. And and you know that they were doing probably very mild vanilla type experimenting compared to sort of video games you might get to play in VR.
Yeah, all the two studies they did.
Did you see that there are 3 full immersion virtual reality games that are being made specifically for the VR?
Well, by Valve. There's plenty of VR games being made.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
So the 2 studies where you get to be Superman for a certain amount of time, and then they were testing how compassionate you were to other people and how likely you were to help someone. And then they did one where your avatar had the opposite skin color, and then you were doing a study where you were rating how others were perceiving you. And if you were the opposite skin color, you would perceive others looking at you more negatively.
That's insanely
during
awesome.
the time that you were virtual reality.
I mean, so some of the other things that they talked about in this list, right, this ethics code list that they wrote, were the informing that you were talking about, like the APA, full disclosure, essentially, about any lasting effects, transparency, so not overhyping, right, anything of the, this isn't like a snake oil salesman thing. And then I liked this one particularly, the awareness of potential pitfalls of this, right, because oftentimes it seems like we create this great technology and then all of a sudden it gets used for evil, in some type of thing, and then we make the adjustments after. But heading into VR with the idea of having a genuine understanding as much as one can, right, because eventually somebody's always going to think of a way to manipulate something, in a way that we didn't see coming. That's just kind of how, right, that type of evil works. But at least trying to be like heads up about it, like going into the process, is something that is a little bit comforting to me. I don't know.
Well, here's my biggest fear. Here's my biggest fear when it comes to VR and ethics. So what we're experiencing right now, take VR off the conversation for a second. It used to be that the public dynamic, public discussion was in the public sphere, public, physical sphere.
Yeah.
And we had a sense of what is appropriate private, what is appropriate public. We had that kind of worked out as a public conscious, as a society. We understood, or at least we had, it might have been morphing, it might have been evolving, but we always had a basic sense of what's good for private space, what's good for public space. And we've created an all new private space with online social media, and we've not worked out yet how to be a society in that internet social media.
By the way, if you think James is wrong, just go check Twitter for 7 minutes and you will find that.
We've not worked out, and before we solve that problem, we're bringing in a third public space.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
We're coming into now what can be VR public space, and we haven't solved our issues in the second one.
I was going to say innovation is outpacing our ability to see the effects that this technology has.
Right.
Because there's so much money to be made. Facebook and Oculus Rift and whoever is just pushing this, not down our throat, but just creating and innovating and wanting to sell it and bring it to market. And
incentivizing.
They're not all that concerned about what it does to us.
Right.
So then if that's kind of this big one that we can't really see, right, and we don't really know the direction and the route that it's going to take. But one thing that we can kind of actually comment on now is the concept of neuromarketing, right? And so what do you think about that, or do you have any problem with that, or?
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, so the article defines neuromarketing, talking about new grounds for targeted advertising. So basically, you can just think of the Futurama episode there, right, where they every time you have this the new iPhone, essentially is what they were making fun of, and you put it in, and then Mom's Robot Factory, right, tells you to get this thing, and you go do it, and she's trying to get people towards world domination, and that type of idea. So do you have any? So
it's
thoughts
probably
about
like
the site?
It's probably like Nike paying to involuntarily change the shoes that you wear in your avatar. So you're wearing Nike shoes, and so in your game or whatever, like, oh, dude, check out my new, and you like can click on them and buy them instantly, and
right.
And
like
so,
that. So those types of ideas, like it's Facebook targeted advertising, right? But just in your
hyper personalized,
literally in your brain.
Yeah,
right?
I don't.
Does this bother you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Does it bother you, James?
I'm not sure how much it bothers me. I mean, there's a lot there I can't conceive of. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're going, all of this is on the assumption that you're really in somebody else's corporate space, right? When you use Facebook, you're not at home, right? Your body might be at home, but your Facebook page is in the corporate space of Facebook. It's owned. It exists on a Facebook server,
right.
And Facebook ought to be able to do whatever it wants on its server, right? Outside of any kind
people too.
Well, no, but so it doesn't bother me in that sense, because when you enter into a VR world, you really aren't, like, that aspect of your interaction is really taking place on somebody else's server, and you submit yourself to their context and what they find to be fair when you do that. Where I'm a little bit more concerned is, like, for example, let's look at hate speech, right? Now, there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always people who don't live up to what society thinks. But for the most part, we know what hate speech sounds like and how it's not appropriate in the true public outside space.
Right.
We know how it shouldn't go, and we know how to react against it as a society, right? Individuals, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about as a society, how we react against it. Hate speech is becoming a problem in the online forums, and we haven't figured that out. What happens now when we switch to a VR space? How is hate speech going to be a problem?
Stab.
Right?
Yeah, so just yesterday I was talking to some friends about how racist Xbox Live's conversations are. I mean, you just wouldn't believe. I mean, someone comes on to your game with an accent, and people are, it's unbelievable.
Now it's a race to see whose slur is actually the right one for that person, right? Correctly identifying their accent.
Sure, but like, I mean, sounds like 13,
14,
14, 15, 16-year-olds, but it's just like, you wouldn't, I think the average person who's not in that online anonymous communication on a daily basis would be blown away what people deem as acceptable, and it goes unresponded to, or undefended by others in the room. So imagine taking that to the next VR level,
right,
where someone can slightly in a more immersive and slightly more real way produce hate speech.
Yeah.
How do we, as bystanders or as the individuals receiving it, respond to that?
Also, what happens when the immersive world of VR goes awry, and, for example, something scary happens that's unexpected, and it gives a VR user a heart attack? What's the ethics of the situation? How do we govern that? How does the law react to that? Is it just user beware, or can we overstep certain boundaries where we affect users in unexpected ways, and now we're going to be penalized for it, even if it was an accident, let's say.
Right.
The thing that VR allows for that we've attempted before, but it wasn't doable, is people have tried to take social media and make an actual 3D world out of it. Like, one example was PlayStation Home. PlayStation Home
sucked.
It did.
I was excited for it, but
right.
It was not good.
A lot of people were excited for it, and it was social media realized as a full 3D world that you didn't.
Well, they didn't finish it.
Right. You didn't just click to things. You were in this world. You went to things.
Yeah. To go play your game, you got up your avatar and you walked them to
the arcade.
Yeah, and you went to go play your game.
And you'd pass other people who are real people in this virtual world. That wasn't very interesting when it was a screen, but in VR, that is going to be a step that is now, as long as it's done correctly, it will be successful. And what happens when we are sharing a new physical space, which is a VR physical space? What happens when social inappropriate things happen there? What happens when hate speech happens there? What happens when blatant racism takes new form in a public VR space? We haven't as a society evolved to the level to deal with that yet. And people might be thinking, it's just video games, whatever. Like, what are you thinking? But it's not going to be that way. It is going to affect people.
Right.
It's possible to traumatize people outside of physical harm.
Sure, absolutely.
Undoubtedly.
And VR is going to offer an all new set of circumstances to traumatize people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why the ethics of VR is a real issue.
Yeah. But then the whole other layer is kind of what you brought up earlier, is that since the invention of mass media, it has been provided by and essentially controlled by advertisers who allow you to access this communication for nearly free. I mean, Facebook, I don't know why, but I hear a lot of the times from the older generation, for some reason, like, oh, as soon as Facebook charges, I'm going to cancel because they're got to charge someday. I'm like, you don't know how this works. They're never going to charge to access Facebook because they just want the audience for the people to be able to spend their advertising money on. And so
Right.
Facebook will always be free. Well, how can Facebook be free when they have billions of dollars in servers? It's because the advertisers pay for it. So maybe the hardware for a long time won't be free, but the access, the ability to interact on VR will be they will remove as many barriers as possible so they can get advertisements.
Will somehow be better than the lack of obstacles there are to access Facebook.
Maybe.
No, for sure.
But because of that, ethically, do the advertisers care about what happens within the individuals and how they feel with interactions, or are they just going to create as compelling spaces as possible to get more eyes on their product?
You are correct. So, you heard it here first. Ethics of VR. Crucial. Let us know what you think in the comments below if you think this is going to affect you. If you have any links to any cheaper forms of VR and can find them, better than Oculus Rift, that's now probably going broke, let us know. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Follow us on Twitter at faithandwhatever. Find us on the Instagreasy at faithandwhatever. I'm at Josh_Carmen, at TStudentLife. Jamothy is at JamesYuile. Chris is at Marion Ranch. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we will talk to you soon. Love you, Mom.